Welcome to Hii TechTalk, where we simplify your crazy tech talk. In this video, we are going to build a gaming PC. If you want a dedicated video on how to choose different parts for your PC, do tell us in the comments. We will make that video for you. There are several stages in assembling a PC. The first thing to do is to get the case ready, that is, remove all side panels to provide access to every part and lay all wires the way you like. In fact, it doesn't matter that we are building the computer in this particular case and with these particular parts. Essentially, all builds are more or less similar. The only thing to be really different is how the CPU cooler is mounted and several other minor aspects, but all the other things are very much the same. Getting ready to assemble a computer. When the case is ready, unbox the motherboard, unpack the processor, and then install the processor into the motherboard. It's not that difficult at all, just find out how to place it into the socket. If you are trying to assemble a computer for the first time, never try to push or force the processor into the socket if it doesn't fit. It never helps, but you can bend the pins or end up with a damaged processor. There is no need for any physical pressure. If you insert it the right way, it will slide into the socket easily. So what's the proper way of installing it? On the processor, there is a triangular mark in the corner, and a similar mark on the socket of your motherboard. Place the processor the way as to make sure the marks coincide. It will fit into its place easily, and you can assure yourselves by having a closer look. Now lock this retention lever. That's all. The CPU has been put into place, nothing too difficult. The next step is application of the thermal paste. After the processor is installed, it needs some thermal paste on top. In my case, the stock cooler comes with thermal paste on it, so I skip the paste operation and just install the cooler. Thermal paste should be applied in a thin layer along the perimeter of the processor or the heatsink, the lower part of the cooler system. All coolers always come with an installation manual, so read it carefully before you start and consider it done. Depending on the cooler type, you may see a different kind of mounting. As we're dealing with the stock cooler, let's remove this part as it is intended for mounting tower type coolers. Then mount the stock cooler from the box. These four bolts should be tightened as far as they would go. At first start the screws, and then screw them till the end one by one. When the cooler is mounted, connect it to the motherboard. The plug at the end of the cable coming from the fan should be inserted into the connector marked as CPU fan. The actual location of the connector depends on the particular motherboard model, but the marking is always the same. Our next step is to install the system memory. It's not difficult at all, just release the retention clips. Bear in mind that system memory modules should be inserted only in a certain position. If the module won't fit into the slot, just try turning the module the other side. If you want two memory modules to work in dual channel mode, make sure you insert them into slots of the same color, but if you only have one module, the slot color doesn't matter at all. The motherboard may also have special marking and numbers for slots. Insert the module by slightly pressing on it until you hear a click, first on one side and then on the other. That's all, your memory is now in place, and it must be one of the easiest steps in building a computer. Before we move on to the next stage, make sure you know the location of all necessary connectors. First of all, find the connector marked as sys fan. You will need it to connect the case fan. The fan on the computer case should be powered from this particular connector. Installing the motherboard into the case. The next step is to put the motherboard inside the case. First of all, make sure the cables are untangled and out of your way as you get inside. We'll pay more attention to cable management later by hiding them behind the side panel so that they don't hang about inside the case and don't hinder the proper air circulation. Look inside the motherboard box to find the I/O shield. Insert it in the rear of your case according to the position of the motherboard. Do it from the inside of the case and push slightly until it clicks into place. Then have a look at how your motherboard fits into the case to find out where you should prepare additional mounting points. Usually these things, also called standoff screws, come with the computer case. Add some more if necessary. Now check the motherboard again to make sure it coincides with the standoff screws. Now fix it to the case with the screws that come shipped with the case. Connecting the PSU to the motherboard. At this stage, it's time to connect the motherboard to the power supply unit. This thick cable delivers power to the motherboard, so plug it in. This 8-pin cable powers the processor, so connect it to the plug with the corresponding marking. Leave the graphics card power connector for now. We will put it into its proper place as soon as the card is installed. Connecting the motherboard to the case. Now we are ready to connect the motherboard to the front panel of the case. At this stage you may have some difficulties if you're building a computer for the first time, especially when you need to connect the front panel cables. Don't worry, all plugs and all motherboard connectors come with the corresponding markings. It's very easy. Put the audio plug into the audio connector. Just pay attention to the location of the connectors. Remember that if you are trying to put something in the wrong place, it won't fit in. After that, insert the USB plug into USB 1 or USB 2 connector, and it doesn't matter which one you chose. Now it's time to connect the power and reset buttons, as well as LED indicators. Read the motherboard manual to find out their exact location. HD LED, reset, power and power LED indicator. Electric polarity is usually marked on the motherboard and the plugs. If there is no marking at all, then the general principle of motherboard design is that the positive contact should be on the left, and the negative on the right. The white wire is the negative one, and the green wire, or the wire of any other color, is the positive one. If your front panel has a USB 3.0 port, this is the wire you should plug into this motherboard connector marked as USB 3.0. The next stage is to install and connect the SSD. Just find a good place for the drive inside the case and fix it there. In our case, it can be put here onto this side panel. Fix the drive with screws, connect the power cable from the PSU, and use the SATA cable to connect the SSD to the motherboard. Installing the graphics card. The next, and almost the last step, is installing the graphics card. It is quite easy. Take it out of the box and unpack. Estimate how it would fit into the case and remove a shield or two from the rear of the case to make way for the card's connectors. Then just insert the card into the PCI Express slot and use a screw or two to secure the graphic card's metal retention bracket to the case so that it is fixed into place firmly and can't get damaged. Finally, it is now that you connect the additional power cable that was hanging about the case all this time. At this moment, you're almost finished with the assembly operations, except for cable management and closing the case. Lay the wires and cables neatly, tie them if necessary to make sure they are not hanging all about inside the computer case. Close the side panels. That's all, we've got everything together. Our gaming PC build is ready. We would recommend to watch the tests you should do after building your PC, which you will find on our channel. For effective speed and head-to-head comparison, visit my site HiiTechTalk.com. Link will be given in the description for your help. Now the handy gift for new gaming PC builders. A gaming PC building guide from Hii TechTalk is given completely free. Hope you all like it. Tell me in the comments. If you like my video, consider subscribing.